anti-money laundering specialist at Deutsche Bank, recommended in 2016 and 2017 that multiple transactions involving legal entities controlled by Donald Trump and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, be reported to a federal financial crimes watchdog. Okay, so the transactions reportedly set off alerts designed to detect suspicious activity. Bank executives allegedly ignored their employees' advice, never filing reports with the government. Let's bring in the journalist that broke the news just moments ago, New York Times finance editor David Enright. David, thank you so much for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Okay, so David, we saw the headline right there. Highlight exactly what your reporting is finding.
Well, first of all, Donald Trump, it's important to remember, is one of the biggest clients of Deutsche Bank, and Deutsche Bank is the only bank that has done business in a consistent manner with Donald Trump for the past 20 years. And starting in 2016 and going on into 2017, a number of transactions that various Trump accounts and Kushner accounts at Deutsche Bank were involved with were flagged by the bank's computerized anti-money laundering system. And when employees went to take a closer look and reviewed the records and investigated the transactions, they concluded, based on what they had seen, that these were potentially suspicious transactions that should be reported to the federal government division that pursues financial crime. And the bank, these reports go up through the chain of command of the bank, and bank managers took a look at what their employees had found and what they'd recommended, and they overruled the employees. They decided that no, these reports, this information did not need to go to the government. And that was basically the end of the matter.
Hey, David, you mentioned in your reporting here, at least some of them involved money that was flowing back and forth with overseas entities or individuals which bank employees considered suspicious. What could you possibly think was happening here?
Well, there's a little more detail, actually, and that I can share with you, which is that in the summer of 2016, one of the employees of the bank who reviewed transactions involving Kushner Companies, which is Jared Kushner's family real estate company, saw that money was leaving his accounts in a number of transactions and was going to Russian individuals. And that is, for obvious reasons, I think, a pretty big red flag. And these employees are trained to look for transactions that have the characteristics of money laundering or other illicit activity, and money going from a U.S. bank account to Russian bank accounts is obviously one such flag. And the employee who saw this, her name is Tammy McFadden, and she, first of all, raised these concerns about these particular transactions, raised a number of other concerns, including some involving Trump transactions, and complained so much that her bosses moved her out of the division where she'd been seeing these problems, and then months later fired her from the bank. So there are a lot of red flags here, not just for the Kushner and Trump transactions, but for how Deutsche Bank handled these processes and handled their employees.
And I should point out, we have heard from Deutsche Bank and others. In your article, David, you mentioned there are two responses from the Trump and Kushner companies. A spokeswoman for the Trump organization says that we have no knowledge of any flagged transactions with Deutsche Bank and currently has no operating accounts with Deutsche Bank, while a spokeswoman for Kushner companies says any allegations regarding Deutsche Bank relationship with Kushner companies, which involve money laundering, is completely made up and totally false. The New York Times, of course, continues to create dots that just don't connect. Does that give you pause at all? What do you make of that response?
No, neither of those responses gives me a lot of pause. I mean, first of all, you wouldn't expect the Trump organization or the Kushner companies to be aware of any of this to begin with, because the banks generally wouldn't inform their customers about this. The Kushner response that they weren't involved in money laundering is all well and good. We're not suggesting that they were involved in money laundering. And I think Deutsche Bank has, in some ways, the most credible argument here, which is that a lot of times employees raise concerns about transactions that turn out to be unwarranted. The employees are trained to sometimes err on the side of caution. And it's normal for managers up the food chain to take a look at the transactions, and sometimes they'll conclude the concerns were unwarranted and they won't file the reports. And I don't know if that's what happened here. And that is what I'm hearing from people at the bank happened. But when you talk to the employees who are involved in this, they believe that the reports they wanted to file with the government were basically shot down because bank executives were so desperate and so eager to preserve a very lucrative relationship that the bank had with both the Trump and Kushner families. So it really depends whom you ask.
Yeah, we popped up the statement there from Tammy McFadden, the former Deutsche Bank anti-laundering specialist who reviewed some of the transactions. She went on record for this story and says that she was fired to quash the concerns. Deutsche Bank also responding, I should mention, and you saw that statement, saying they have increased our anti-financial crime staff and enhanced our controls in recent years. David, let me have you sum up for us all of this. You mentioned that there are many banks that kind of do this stuff, the where you will have employees raise red flags about anti-money laundering issues there within banks. But is this a hair on fire moment or what?
I mean, I don't think it's a hair on fire moment. I'm bald, so there's never a hair on fire moment as far as I'm concerned. But I
feel your pain.
I think this is the type of issue where congressional investigators who are already digging into the bank's relationship with Donald Trump are going to see this as a pretty important story, because they're already looking for any evidence of improper activity either with the bank or with their clients. And this clearly shows that at the very least, some of the bank's own employees had very serious concerns about the way the bank was handling the Trump and Kushner accounts.
And one of those employees was Tammy McFadden. Where's her case right now?
Well, she's fired from the bank,
Yeah.
and she has complained to a number of federal regulators about the situation, and we will see where that goes.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.